Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox. It's November 5th, Election Day, and I want to bring you one last stupid, hypocritical, and just absolutely cherry-picked and dumb story that I happen to know a really good and timely counterpoint to that I just managed to find.
It goes without saying, killing animals is very upsetting, especially if it's a pet, which is why the debunked conspiracy theories that Trump and his supporters were perpetuating just a few months back were so rage-inducing. Especially considering that more than a few members of the GOP have their own bizarre histories with animal abuse or mistreatment of animals or just taking them down to the gravel pit.
That's right.
Putting a bullet in their head.
So I know Don's fired up about Peanut the squirrel. We were on the way down here from Cincinnati. He was like, is it really the case that the Democrats murdered the Elon Musk of squirrels? And I said, yeah, it sounds like, have you seen the videos of this squirrel?
A squirrel named Peanut became famous online after its owner started making videos with the squirrel after he claimed to have rescued it. And he said he tried to reintroduce it to the wild, but ultimately took it in as a pet after it became clear that the squirrel now relied on him to survive. The owner, who goes by the online moniker Squirrel Daddy, says that he was aware that owning the squirrel was illegal, but by all accounts he did seem to take good care of it. And its fun little antics and its cute little outfits quickly blew up online, bringing Peanut a level of fame only previously seen during the first wave of internet cats.
Someone reported Peanut and Squirrel Daddy to the authorities, who searched the property and captured the squirrel. According to officials, Peanut bit a police officer, and, well, you know what happens when someone's pet bites a police officer.
Yeah.
That pet is going to die.
Yeah, it's basically...
They don't even have to bite him half the time. They just have to exist.
Yeah, look at them wrong, or in most cases, bark.
This story is a lot more complicated than that, but because it happened in New York State, which is largely Democratic, the Republican Party is choosing to blame the Democrats and say that this is some unique Democratic overstep of power. They killed this guy's squirrel. So let's look a little bit further into it. How did the squirrel end up biting a cop anyways? I mean, it sucks when your pet gets shot by the police, but honestly, if your pet has bit a police officer, it's gonna happen. I hate to break it to you, if you have a problem with that, take it up with the police. Like, I don't necessarily think that they should be able to murder our pets, but, this is kind of a separate issue, and this is an issue with police, not particular political parties. This is just an example of cherry picking, because most people don't have an offhand story or counterpoint to this that's happened recently, because this was kind of a uniquely famous squirrel. But there's also another way that this story goes deeper. I mean, they're blaming Democrats, but the person who ratted this influencer out about having a squirrel was likely mad that this fun online squirrel was being used to promote his owner's OnlyFans page.
This was a squirrel doing tricks owned by someone who was using the success of that squirrel to boost their OnlyFans page and therefore make money off of that.
Yeah, that is, they generally see that as degeneracy. There's not a day that goes by where I don't see some OnlyFans woman on Twitter getting told that she's like worthless and fatherless.
Yes.
But let's disregard that because he still shouldn't have had his squirrel murdered by the police. Sure, it was an illegal squirrel, but they probably shouldn't have... what else are they going to do with it? At this point, it was kind of dependent on him. It was no longer really wild. He had domesticated it, so it wasn't just going to be safe out in the woods anymore. If they're going to take it away from him, that's kind of what they have to do. Or, put it in a... Do they have zoos for squirrels? How do you solve this problem? Right? But I can think of a counterpoint that's far, far worse than this, because they didn't just shoot this man's squirrel.
So they unloaded 72 rounds into that poor little guy after claiming that they feared for the lives. There was nothing left. It was just mist everywhere.
That seems, even for American police, to be utterly ridiculous. Instead, they captured the squirrel, took it to a lab, checked it for rabies to make sure that they were safe, and then euthanized it. Now, I don't know about the euthanization method, so I can't comment on whether the squirrel suffered or not, but recently in Florida, a very similar incident happened to a reptile keeper. Now, apparently he was keeping, it was some sort of a venomous or maybe otherwise illegal. I don't remember the specifics on why his facility was targeted, But there were a few snakes that they were coming to seize and dispose of that he owned somehow illegally. And the police are there doing that. And while they're there doing that, they get out this man's perfectly legal and very, very pregnant python. A very rare python whose babies are worth to him as a breeder, I believe over $100,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I'm gonna cut to someone who knows this much better than me. Look, I have some lizards and snakes myself. I'm kind of familiar with these animals, and it just happens to be lucky that I happen to watch a lot of this type of content, because this is actually a pretty famous story within this community. I mean, unlike this squirrel, this snake did not bite or ever attempt to aggress or harm the police.
Oh, did I do that?
This snake was chilling in its cage perfectly legally, unlike the squirrel who was being broadcast on the internet as an influencer, flaunting the fact that the squirrel was owned illegally. It's a completely different case. But also, this python wasn't euthanized. They shot it in the head with a bolt gun. It's brutal. There's video. And if you want to say, well, oh well, I guess this is just another example of Democrats out of control. This happened in Florida. Yeah. I don't think we can blame anything that happens in Florida on Democrats, to be fucking honest with you. Especially not this. If, by the logic that J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, and conservative outrage marketers are trying to peddle here, then the Republicans are way more responsible for this. This animal was legally kept, worth a hell of a lot of more money than your squirrel, although I don't know how much money they were making on their OnlyFans. Maybe the squirrel was like a marketing genius.
The Longos said they bought their 350 acre spread near Elmira with the $800,000 that they made in 1 month posting their porn online. And Peanut then began pulling his own weight with his separate family-friendly fan base. I just tagged my Squirrel Dad account from the Peanut video I posted, so it gets double the clip views, he said. Every once in a while, a shirtless photo on Peanut's page too, but I completely separated myself from this entire thing. Obviously, people were gonna find both and try to associate them.
I mean, J.D. Vance did say it was the Elon Musk of squirrels, which is a statement that's so absurd as to mean absolutely fucking nothing outside of memes.
Here are some indisputable facts that you can know about what really happened last Thursday. First, a boa constrictor was misidentified and killed. This boa was completely legal to own in Florida, as boa constrictors are not on the FWC prohibited species list in Florida. This snake was 11 years old and had been raised by the owner, Bill McAdam, since it was a baby.
The python didn't bite the police. It was legal. It was very valuable.
This boa was gravid or pregnant with 32 fully developed babies at the time of her death.
It was full of babies that died because it was murdered.
29 reticulated pythons and 5 Burmese pythons were also killed. All appeared healthy. All snakes were in locked cages. All snakes were microchipped, registered, and on documented inventory with FWC, as the owner was in full compliance with the conditional species permit rules before that program was terminated for this species in 2021.
I will cut to someone explaining this story much better than I can, and including video. Someone really deep in the reptile community and knows the ins and outs of the story.
Chris Coffey fed, maintained, and humanely kept all of these pythons from February 2022 until April 6, 2023, as ordered by the FWC in February of 2022. On April 6th, the FWC officers killed 34 of Coffey's animals, many of which he hatched and raised himself, along with the misidentified boa constrictor. 29 of these 34 snakes were reticulated pythons. Reticulated pythons are not an invasive species in Florida. This fact has been misrepresented in many mainstream media forms. These pythons were killed because FWC had moved the species from conditional species to prohibited species. Licensed individuals who had been housing, breeding, and selling, and again, when they sell them, they were only allowed to sell to out-of-state buyers or other conditional species permit holders, for many years were not grandfathered in. FWC did not allow snake breeders and sellers to keep any of the snakes, even as non-breeding pets. These conditional species owners only had 90 days to sell, euthanize, or rehome their animals. Coffee had managed to rehome the majority of his pets during the 90 days, but not all of them. When the prohibited species rules passed, some exhibitors and zoos were allowed to keep some animals now listed as prohibited species, but snake keepers and breeders were not allowed to be grandfathered. The 34 pythons owned by Chris Coffey were being kept at a facility owned by Bill McAdam, the owner of the killed boa constrictor. Coffey had informed FWC that this is where the snakes were housed. Okay, you ready for this? The killing technique used on April 6th was meant for emergency and in the wild purposes only. This situation did not require the snakes to be killed in this manner. The FWC officers did not follow their own two-step process for humanely killing reptiles, as stipulated by the FWC, that is even publicly posted on its own website. The officers only performed step 1 and never completed the humane process by carrying out step 2.
And with that, that's going to be the end of the video. That's how I'm going to cut it out. So, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Ring the bell because I do discuss controversial topics on here, and a lot of my videos get deprioritized in the YouTube algorithm. So please, if you want to see more stuff like this, click the bell, subscribe, like, you know, all those YouTube things. But also check out the link in the description for links to my fiction. I write fantasy, science fiction, and near past, like COVID era cyberpunk, which I think is just like a really interesting and unique vibe, and I wish you'd check it out. But you can also donate to the channel through Patreon or Ko-fi, and you can also check out this channel as a podcast, other things like that, through that link in the description. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Now get prepared to get really outraged about a very big snake.